Hello and welcome to another SonicLAB. Today we're looking at the PWM Mantis. How could I not review something with PWM in the title? PWM Mantis is the second from PWM Music, Paul Whittington that is. And this is another one in their kind of collaborative series after the Malevolent with Future Sound Systems, Finley Shakespeare. This one was made in conjunction with the legend that is Chris Huggett, who's sadly no longer with us. This is possibly the last synthesizer he worked on before he sadly passed away. This is a hybrid synthesizer, and while it does share the same sort of livery kind of concept as the Malevolent, it's a very different thing. It has a pair of digital oscillators. We've got a mixer here, which also has ring mod and noise source. We'll get onto those a little bit later. Pair of LFOs, analog filter. These are dual filters, so they can be stereo or they can be separated. Very much like the original Oscar, which is a Chris Huggett thing, where you can move the peaks apart and get some really interesting sounds. A pair of envelopes, both looping. Arpeggiator, 2 digital effects, it's a spring reverb and a chorus, plus a 6-way mod matrix. 200 patch parameters that you can save. There's also voicing. This goes, actually, it's not just, as you might think, a duophonic, which it was first pitched at, but it actually goes up to quad now. And the way that that works, we've got one analog VCA, but there are sort of sub-VCAs in the digital domain. So that gives us a sort of this hybrid notion. Interestingly, we can take the end cheeks off, so these are all held on with magnets, so if you do fancy something different, I'm sure you could knock one up, or maybe they're going to bring them along. It's a good solid unit, 3-octave keyboard with aftertouch and velocity, quite a nice action. Control section here, which has a joystick, which has a center detent, so you can use it for a few things, including arpeggiator modes and hold. We've got arpeggiator at various modes, plus octave up and down here. So let's have a few patches before we get stuck into the oscillators. This was the one I started with, and it sounds a bit like a sort of harp, doesn't it? But then when you hold, I've got a really fast arpeggiator on it. It just sounds very string-like, a little bit of distortion into the reverb there. I'll just take that down a tiny bit. Really like that one. Let's have a look at... this was a square wave with a lot of harmonics on a high pass 12. Duophonic sound. Got a bit of drive and a bit of width. Here, as I increase the width, stereo. Yeah, I like that. Again, there's a sort of, that you could get this kind of slightly angry vibe. It's still got that drive in it, and there's plenty of distortion if you want it. It's just not quite as hot as the Malevolent, I would say. This one, I think, I'm using ring mod. And quite a lot of distortion. In quad mode. Sort of interesting sound, slightly atmospheric. Some variations on that. Kind of angry, distorted arpeggiator. So let's go to some of the actual init patches. We'll start at patch. Let's start at patch 0, actually. This is the sort of one that when you switch it on. And this is that kind of talking filter. Got aftertouch mapped to the filter width. And you can hear them, the 2 peaks kind of thrown out wide. And we get that kind of talking quality in the low pass 12. Very nice. This is another one of those slightly sort of driven 303 sounds. And using the wavetable, there's an organ position here, so we've got... I think this one was one that Paul showed off at the last time we saw him. Bringing in some of that noise. Square wave. Anyhow, I hope that gives you a rough idea of kind of some of the breadth of patches. Let's take a look at those oscillators. I've got scopes up here, so we've got the frequency and the waveform. So we'll start with just a sine wave. You can see it's got a good fundamental down there. Really good fundamental. Goes right down, -3 to +2. We can vary the shape. So we've got kind of a fold here. This is a modulatable parameter. Then we've got a triangle wave, which in the far left position on the shape is a classic triangle. And then we've got a kind of folding, adding additional peaks. Then we've got good old sawtooth. Again, good wide spread of frequencies and a nice shape. And I would like this actually because we can modulate the shape, which is a nice alternative to PWM. Doesn't go through zero, of course. Then we've got a square wave. In fact, actually, let's move over to oscillator 2 because we've got some additional features. The wave shapes are exactly the same on each one. So we'll go to a nice square wave. And it's got a decent tear to it. We can mod the shape. And it goes through zero. Lovely. Then we got the organ wave. Which just has a series of harmonics. It's quite sort of churchy in sound, but obviously we can filter that down as well. Then we've got the actual wavetable position. This is non-editable, but we've got some classic sort of sound. Plenty of harmonics in there to deal with later. Oscillator 2 is different from oscillator 1 in that we've got the ability to tune it in semitones away from oscillator 1 and also sense. But there's another interesting feature, which is this density thing. If we come back down to sawtooth, density, what it does is basically this delivers 2 oscillators for the price of 1. So as we bring the density up, we've kind of got 2, we're cloning it, and then we can change the sort of the beat frequency between them. So if we go to, let's get those, this is the mixer which gives us a blend between A and B. So we're going to go 3 saw teeth and a bit of detune. So we've got quite a decent amount of oscillators there. And also, I forgot to say, oscillator 1 has a sub as well. So if we bring that in, this gives us, you can feel that underneath, an octave sub sine wave underneath. So you can, I don't know if you can get that on YouTube, but quite a decent amount of sub there. And also we've got this oscillator drift here. So at this sound where I've got a sawtooth, triangle and a bit of oscillator sub, dialing this in, just adds a a bit of that kind of analog sort of inaccuracy, just to make it sound a little bit more analog. So let's go back to oscillator 2. We'll just nicely, oscillator 1 sub is separate, so we've got kind of blend between 1 and 2. Also a shift of this will turn down the amount of signal going into the filter. So if it's breaking up or breaking up into maybe the reverb, you can tweak that here by pressing a shift function. So oscillator 1, then we've also got noise, which is white, but pressing shift gives us a sort of bit reduction effectively. So we get this kind of almost like vinyl crackly noise. Let's take that up. Get that kind of like little fit when we start to filter that down. Just kind of an interesting noise there. So we take that down. Oh, we could, yeah, so that's sample reduction, that's the shift function. So let's bring the filter back up. Go to a sine wave for this. And a sine wave here. We can also ring mod out. So we've got quite a lot of, just sort of with those basic controls, you know, with the ring mod, we've got kind of quite some interesting interchange there. There's no sync mode, so we can't sync the oscillators, but we do get ring mod, which gives us an entirely different flavour. So we can get some sort of bell-like tones. Put a bit of that reverb on there. Bit of the chorus. Bring a bit of sample and hold. Nice. Okay, so now let's get on to the filter. This is kind of an interesting topography and is kind of where a lot of the character of the sound comes from. Okay, let's just start with sawtooth from oscillator 2 into low pass 12. There are multiple modes here, obviously. We've got 3 12 dB modes, low pass, band pass and high pass, then 3 24 dB modes. I think that basically is because these are dual filters. These then become in series to create 4-pole filters. Then we've got a wide band pass and a wide notch. So let's just listen to oscillator 2 into the low pass 12. Nice harmonics. Quite resonant for a 2-pole. Let's try band pass, high pass. Got some lovely low harmonics here. You can see. Oh yeah, I like that. And then same, we've got a bit more creamy. Same there. Then we've got wide band, which is a wide band pass, and a wide notch. Which is kind of interesting. Now, the second mode, which is more fascinating, essentially, when we're in duophonic mode, we have 2 filters running in parallel. So the width control then controls the distance between the peaks of those filters. So if I demonstrate this is with low pass filter. Now if I bring the peak up, you can see those 2 distinct peaks moving apart from each other. And we get that real kind of like vocal kind of sound. But there's more that we can do. If we take the voicing and go into bringing the voice spread, we now have distinct, we can throw them fully wide. For some quite interesting stereo effects. So in this patch, I've got LFO1 modulating the filter cutoff quite slowly, and LFO2 in a square wave modulating the filter width. I've also got 2 oscillators and a bit of detune, so I've got and some reverb going on there. Nice width going from those filters. But we haven't even got onto the drive. So if we now get, because we've got drive from the mix level and drive from this circuit here. Let's just go to low pass. We can get some really really angry distortion by driving it, turning the oscillator full up, and then the drive. Almost sounds like sort of MS-20 through a distortion pedal. So quite a wide range from sort of sweeter tones to something a bit more angry and sort of "Arr." Okay, let's take a look at the 2 LFOs. A pair of LFOs do what you would expect. We've got multiple waves. Got it modulating the filter here. Doesn't go quite as high into audio rates as I was like, but we've got this fade function. So this is a center to 10. So we can fade in and fade out over specific periods of time, which is kind of neat. They're both syncable, both exactly the same. There's a neat trick though, actually, which I'd like to show you. If you press Shift and the sync button, then this will go into single shot mode. So we can have the LFO in single shot mode. So it'll just do a cycle, and there's a nice way of using that. So we can actually have it in sample and hold mode. And that's basically now out on every key trigger, there's a new frequency being sent. If we go to oscillator 1 pitch, LFO 1. So we can effectively have a random pitch generator. But what's neat about this is obviously, as both envelopes and both LFOs are able to do one shot or loops, you've got sort of 4 function generators effectively that will do single cycle or multiple cycles. Nice touch. Okay, let's demonstrate a few more remaining features. Go to the arpeggiator. Arpeggiator section is here. We switch the arp on with this little button here on the mode. There's a nice trick. When in quad mode, you can press the joystick down and then release, and that basically holds that note triggering the arp, which means now. And now I can play on top of that because I'm in quad mode. Anyway, let's listen to those effects. We've got chorus here, which is a sort of basic chorus, throws it out so wide. We've got 4 presets, just varying in speed and depth. Take that down. We've also got the reverb, which is variable time. Sounds a bit like a spring, but I don't think it is. We could go quite... It's distorting a little bit, and that's where this kind of finesse of the oscillator balance shift. We've got a low pass filter on that, we've got a high pass filter, and do both to sort of narrow down. It's a mono reverb, not especially thrilling, I must admit. We've also got looping envelopes. So now I've got... Let's throw that stereo out a little bit wide with the voice spread. Both of these will trigger. It's quite nice. glide, of course. Bring some of that oscillator switch up, maybe. Bring a bit of drive in. Now, we've got the envelope going to the filter, but if we want to route something different, we could just say, let's go LFO1. We could key trig LFO1 or have it just kind of randomly, have it in sync. And then maybe we could go to filter width for LFO2. Give us a bit more extra movement. It's all cool. I mean, I would actually quite like to be able to be modulating, say, with the filter cutoff of the envelope. I quite like another way to modulate the actual cutoff as well. But with this system, it's only possible to route one source to one destination. We can go via different modes. So obviously I could go filter cutoff to envelope via aftertouch, or via the joystick, or via the pedal input or velocity. Putting full on just sort of negates any of those. It would have been nice to see more of these, because there are some patches where it would actually work out pretty well to have other parameters being modulated. So I would like to have seen some more modulation capabilities. I mean, 6 slots is okay, but it would be nicer to have more. For instance, in this patch, I like the sound of this. But I'd like to have been able to modulate between the oscillator 1 and 2 balance. Sort of run out, but that is actually, one oscillator sounds that way and one sounds that way. It'd be a really nice thing to, I mean, I can map that via a CC and some sort of MIDI LFO, but it's not the same, quite the same. And again, I think the reverb, on reflection, no pun intended, would have maybe made more sense as a delay. I think a delay with something like this would have just given it a bit more life, because the reverb is okay, but it's not really up to much, if we're honest. It sounds a bit like a sort of an old spring from a EMS synthy, which is fine if that's the world you're inhabiting, but I think the synth kind of creates a bit more sonic interest, you know, particularly because we can play up to 4 notes. So yeah, those two things I think would make a big difference to just the kind of the breadth of sounds we can get out of it. There are plenty of good sounds in here, but it does take a little bit of eking out. So the PWM Mantis is available now. It's in stores. I've seen it at Sweetwater for $13.49 US and about the same sort of price in the UK. That is quite a lot of money for a synthesizer like this. I mean, it has 4 voices, though it's not true polyphonic. You still get 4 voices with those goodness of those analog filters and all that sort of Chris Huggett magic, which you're not going to be able to find many places apart from on synths designed by him, which is effectively this one. So if that's the sort of thing you're after, then by all means fill your boots. I can't help but feel that it's just a wee bit on the expensive side. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching the PWM Mantis review on SonicLAB. See you next time. Hey, why not consider joining us on Patreon? We've got a tier for everybody ranging from £2 up to £10 a month for the superstar level. We've got exclusive SonicLAB extra content, behind the scenes, sounds and patches, as well as many other things besides. In fact, everything you hear in this sound bed is made using our Sonicstate samples using Decent Sampler. And we've also got the Patreon members map, which is available to Sonic Star and above. So why not consider signing up, support the site, and get a whole bunch of extra content too.